Hey everyone, I'm Kunal Bajwa.
And I'm Lance Jordan.
We are two nerds who decided to start a podcast in 2020 due to the pandemic. No topic is necessarily off the table, and we'd like you to join us in hearing our thoughts on various topics, ranging from anime to Zeppelins. We have it all. Here we go. All right. Nimesh, today's a pretty cool guest for me today. Lance couldn't make it, got help at work, but today's guest is Nimesh Patel, a legendary comedian. Was discovered by a legendary comedian, Chris Rock, and he has appeared on shows such as Comedy Knockout with Late Night with Seth Meyers and been a writer on SNL. Recently launched a new YouTube show called Zoo Idiots. Please welcome Nimesh Patel. How are you, man?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
I'm good. Thank you.
Cool. So you talked about your upbringing in Brick City, Newark, New Jersey, being an impressionable time for you on your view of life, as well as an incident of making your grandfather laugh to avoid disciplining you as a child. As a fellow Brown kid, I totally understand that. What was it like growing up in Jersey, and was comedy something you saw yourself doing at a young age?
So to clarify, I wasn't raised in Newark, New Jersey. My dad and my mom, they lived there for a while, probably like when they first landed in the States. I think they lived there for like 2 or 3 years. And then my mom's family moved to Parsippany, New Jersey, and that's where I was born and raised in Parsippany. I was born in a nearby suburb of Parsippany where the hospital was, and then I was raised in Parsippany, New Jersey. And so like that, it was like I don't remember much about growing up in suburbia beyond it being growing up in suburbia. I just remember thinking, there's mad Indian people around, because Parsippany was like at that point was at the beginning of becoming Edison 2.0. And right now it's like, there's mad Indian people. But growing up, the most formative stuff as I look back now was, in terms of reflecting on comedy and my comedy in general, is that I was surrounded by Indian people. And so I never felt the need, subconsciously or consciously, to constantly talk about being Indian, because I grew up, my high school class had I don't even remember how many Patels even. It was like 20 something Patels in my high school graduating class. So it was all like, so Indian was just like a thing to me. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm the only Indian person here. This is my identity. It was more just like, it was almost the opposite. It was like, I'm an Indian guy, but so was everyone else. I gotta be different. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And then, but yeah, the Indian stuff of like being disciplined by my grandparents, like that was normal for everyone, I think. I didn't know at an early age that comedy was something you could do necessarily, even before thinking of something I wanted to do. I didn't even know it was a thing you could do. You watch comedy on TV. I would watch The Cosby Show and watch stand up with my grandpa now and then, just because it was on. And I would watch like Dana Carvey because I had somehow flicked onto Comedy Central. I'd watch Chris Rock because, you hear his name and then he's on HBO.
Right. But
it wasn't anything I was like actively pursuing. It just kind of just happened. That influence of comedy was just there because I was surrounded by so many people. Like I grew up with 16 first cousins, and we were all just like laughing and making fun all the time. And that's probably more influential than any specific comedian or comedy event,
Gotcha. 16 cousins.
16 first cousins, yeah. And then like a bunch of cousins that were like second cousins, or like my dad's cousin, or my dad's cousin. So technically my uncle, but my age. So, we call him a cousin, like that kind of shit.
No, I know what you mean. Like I have second cousins. I call them my niece and nephews, and it's easier.
Yeah. So it's like, that was how I grew up.
Yeah. Damn, Patels definitely be smashing.
We be smashing.
I thought Punjabis were smashing, but like, good God.
No, it's a race. It's an arms race.
So far, you're winning.
Yes, sir.
So I read that Chris Rock, Patrice O'Neal, Larry David were some of your influences.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still the case? Is there anyone else kind of added to the list or?
Well, I mean, when I say influences, like Chris and Patrice definitely uh, influenced me in stuff I want to talk about. You know what I mean? Like there's like
Gotcha.
areas of comedy that like uh, I gravitate towards, and that's like commentary on society and human beings in general. And that was like really their influence. Larry is influential in the sense like I really appreciate. I don't know if you've seen. I don't know if he did a documentary or something, but there was something where he's talked about as a guy that would just go on stage and think he's better than the audience.
Yes.
And I definitely look to embody that sensibility. And beyond that, like he's obviously, one of the greatest comedy writers of all time,
Yeah.
having co-created Seinfeld,
Right.
and then EP'd and written some of the best episodes. And Curb is his own fucking beast. So in that sense, like that's how Larry kind of influences me. And now it's more just like uh, uh, the things like Dave and Chris continue to talk about are probably things I've talked about in my career trajectory. Like I've always seen myself as more of a social commentator rather than a personal comedian who looks inward and stuff. And so that influence will remain throughout. And then, Chris and Dave are also very dynamic performers, and I've definitely uh, uh, looked to them to see like, okay, these are like elements of like just the performance aspect. There's like, I personally have to enhance my ability to perform. I think everyone should be getting better at everything that stand-up requires of them.
Totally.
And whether that means like pacing around on stage or like being really emphatic or like adding different intonations and inflections in one's voice, like that's all stuff like I've absorbed not only from Chris and Dave, but from like everyone that I look up to and admire, while still maintaining my own sort of personal sense of who I am as a comedian. And that's just like the evolution of my comedy. Yeah, but it's never been conscious. It's never been like I'm gonna do that. You know what I mean? It's always just like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like I think I have that within me, and that is like an element to the game or my game that I definitely want to enhance. It's kind of the way like basketball players study other basketball players and be like,
Right.
Okay, that's an interesting move. Like, how do I apply that technique to a skill set that I already have or that I'm developing?
Right. Just basically working on instinct and kind of going from there. Definitely.
Exactly. Just enhancing the craft is probably like that's probably been my goal for the last definitely since quarantine, but since before that, just like I got to get better at things that I'm bad at, and performing is probably my weakest aspect, and so that's something I definitely want to get a lot better at.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I think I'm a very good stand-up comedian, and I think my writing is.
I would agree with that statement. Yeah.
I think my writing is probably better than 90% of people doing comedy today, but excluding nobody. But when it comes to like enhancing the skills that take you to the next, there's another gear. My friend Mookie, who I co-created Zoo Idiots with.
You guys seem really good friends, by the way.
What's that?
You guys seem really good friends whenever I see interviews with you guys. So.
Oh yeah. No, that's my guy. But he told me at one point over the summer when we were working on voicing the characters for the show that there's another gear in my stand-up, which is adding like I'm very different on stage, than I am goofy and in person with like people I'm closest with. And I've been trying to close that gap ever since, probably like since I started, but more and more consciously now. And as I was working on voicing the tiger, I voiced the tiger in the show in Zoo Idiots.
Yeah.
As I was becoming a better voice performer, I was like understanding that I got to add that element to my stand-up, because right now probably the biggest note of my performance is that it can be one note, whereas it can like if you're paying attention it's not, but if you're like most comedy fans, you're like almost superficially listening to what's going on.
Sure.
And if that's the case, then it can seem like, oh man, this is just one note. His jokes are his jokes, and it just goes like that. But the jokes are so strong that if you're listening, like, you will understand that, oh shit, this is fucking fantastic comedy. But if I can enhance that, then I will work on doing that, and that's what I'm doing.
Gotcha. That's pretty dope, man. Just as like since you're talking about writing, I'm a big SNL fan, so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your time there and
Yeah, sure.
What was it like and everything.
Yeah, I mean, so I got brought on by Che,
Michael Che.
In the summer of 2017.
Cool.
And I was writer on Weekend Update for that season 43. My first episode was with Jay-Z and Ryan Gosling, which was fucking bananas. It was like an incredible place to work, just to walk those hall of grounds and be a part of that lore. Have my photo up in the writer's room.
That's awesome. That's
which was cool. And hopefully it stays there forever. But yeah, I mean, it was an intense place to work.
I've heard
everyone there is super smart and super funny, and
it's still run like everyone's on cocaine, essentially.
No. It's definitely it's that. I mean, I don't know if everyone's on cocaine, but
no, I mean, like, in terms of like how it started in the 70s, or like the writing hours would go like 4 a.m.
Oh, so on the update side, it's a bit different because the writing team is a bit small. It's like 5 of us or 6 of us.
So it's more compartmentalized that way. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And then there's some overlap at like the higher level between the higher level update writers and the sketch writing team. But our hours are a little different only because they were more dictated by what Che and Jost were doing.
Sure.
And because there wasn't as much production involvement, like we didn't have to design sets or build sets or anything like that.
Gotcha.
And so our most intense days were like Friday and Saturday. Whereas the sketch team is like Tuesday through Saturday, where they were like fucking losing their minds.
Yeah, but like just caffeine injected.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool.
But it definitely wasn't like fueled by coke and all that kind of stuff. No one was going crazy in their writers' offices or anything of the sort. It's more or less just like everyone's like, oh shit, we got a lot of work to do.
Okay,
let's just fucking do it. And it's it's an institution that's been around for 40 plus years because of or in spite of how it's run. And it's obviously done great, and I think it remains the benchmark for every show there is.
Pretty much, yeah, I would definitely agree with that. They've had so many crazy names on that show.
Yeah. Even the names that aren't names are just like insanely talented individuals, and I'm always in awe of that, of that program. That what people don't realize is that's a brand new show that's written in 6 days. That's 90 minutes long.
Yeah.
From zero to everything you see has been done in 6 days.
Kenan Thompson has a podcast. He's been talking about like when Bozwick died. He was like, I want to write a book called 6 Days because it's everything I've done with every guest star that's come on there, and every show has been in 6 days. So that's
6 days.
It's astounding.
It's insane the amount of work that goes into it. That crew is like the set design crew, and I very rarely worked with them because I was on the update side. But like the set design crew, and just seeing it at the superficial level, just like, God damn, these motherfuckers made that in 6 days. Not even, like Wednesday night is read through.
Yeah.
Table read. And so Wednesday night, the set design crew and the costume design crew and all that, that's when they start working.
Jeez.
And so they do all that in fucking 4 days, and everyone's just like, oh, that shit is terrible. It's like, bro, you have no idea the amount of work that goes into this shit that you think you have any ability to execute. And that's from like an angry perspective, but from like an honest and happy perspective, like, yo, these guys put in a ton of fucking work, and it's incredible that they do that. And it shows. I think the show has been around. I don't know anyone that's been doing anything for 45 years and remained that good. No one. You can't name a single person.
Lauren's a legend when it comes to stuff like that. Lauren's was ridiculous. Any sketch that you like remember from that time that you were like to talk about? Or were part of writing?
Again, like I wrote on the update team, so we were just
Or
writing
right for
jokes,
the
jokes,
update
jokes,
team?
jokes.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we did a uh,
Ball sketch.
I think we did a LeVar Ball one, and I definitely remember. I think we did Big Poppy too. I'm not sure if we did Big Poppy, but we definitely did LeVar, and that was. I remember just like getting Keenan to laugh at something that I wrote was, a highlight of my life.
You probably grew up watching him on Nick.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Hell yeah. Same here, man.
Keenan and Charles Barkley were the only two people I was super geeked out to meet. And Keenan was like the nicest guy immediately, as was Charles. But Keenan, like, he somehow, luckily, like, the episode that my parents came to, like, we were going towards the elevator, and Keenan was going to an elevator too, and like I was like, Mom, Dad, that's Keenan. They're like, he was like the only guy they recognized. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Because I grew up watching him, so it was nuts for them to meet, and that was like the highlight of my
Oh man.
that SNL time. Was just like, man, my parents met Keenan Thompson. That was cool.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Trying to think where to go from here. When you're doing stand up, are there any? Have you performed in the Midwest? And are there any jokes that this is one that Lance wrote? Are there any jokes or subjects that you cover seem to go really well in the Midwest? I know we're kind of pivoting a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've done a few shows in the Midwest here and there. Like, I think my most memorable one was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in like April 2019. Was it? Yeah, probably April. It was awesome. I mean,
cool.
It was a one-nighter show in Tulsa, and uh, uh, Tulsa is like a liberal place for the most part. At least the city is.
Okay.
Oklahoma, I think, is pretty red, but Tulsa was actually over. So, like, the crowd itself was surprisingly like liberal, and it was a lot of Indian people.
Oh,
because they all own the motels and hotels there. And this is true. It's a stereotype, but it's true.
It's 100% true.
And so the mad of them came out, and it was just like, I think my expectations were low, but even if they were high, they would have been blown away because the crowds were great. That crowd was great. People loved it. And I don't adjust my material necessarily for the crowds. It's like I'm pretty confident that my material would work with whoever, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on. You might not appreciate what I'm saying, but you will not deny that it's funny. You know what I mean? Like, you might not like what I have to say about Donald Trump, but you will not deny that it's funny.
Yeah.
And that's really that's all that really matters to me. And sure, my experience is limited in the sense that, I've done Tulsa, I've done a few shows in Texas. Mm-hmm. I did comedy on state when I opened for Aziz there, which is in Wisconsin. I don't know if that counts as Midwest or not, but
for today it does.
And then Chicago I've done, but all those places, like, they've been fun. I haven't really tailored my stuff one way or the other. It's just been like, all right, if you laugh, you laugh. If not, okay, it's not for you. But for the most part, people have been receptive,
Cool. So I actually discovered you during the shutdown when the pandemic started, and
nice.
Yeah, it was great. I actually showed a couple clips to my parents. They loved it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. How has the pandemic affected your career, like, overall? It's a bit of a big question, I know, but
it's a hard thing to say. It's been great. I mean,
fantastic.
I don't know necessarily, like, it's impossible to say what would have happened or what wouldn't have happened had pandemic not happened. You know what I mean?
Agree. Yeah.
I do know that while up to lockdown, I felt like my stand-up was really coming into its own. Like, I felt like, all the stuff I did from, like, after I recorded my hour in August of 2019 till around March 15th, 2020, until March 16th, 2020, like, I've really felt like, I'd hit, so to speak, another gear in my stand-up. and that I was talking about things in a way that was fun and very authentic to me, and I was saying things that no one else was saying and having opinions that no one else was saying, and still being funny about it. And then once that shutdown happened, I was like, oh shit, like there goes that momentum that I was really starting to feel.
Yeah.
I put my hour out that I recorded in August of 2019. Like I said, I had shopped it around to like HBO, and HBO said no. And I said, all right, fuck it. I'm just going to put it out because I'm not going to wait for someone to tell me this is good or not.
Right.
Because I thought it was fucking fantastic. And so when I put that out for like a month or so, it got a little bit of traction here and there. And then for some reason in mid-April, it just like went through the roof, and I kind of like started doing really well. It's got like 800 something thousand views now, which is crazy to me. But
dope. Awesome.
You know, and that has definitely impacted a lot of my other stuff. You know, like I decided to put a lot more clips on and really pursue the model of like self-distribution, and that's kind of worked itself out in the sense that people know who I am. I recorded a new like mixtape in DC in October, and that all the people that came to those shows were just because of YouTube. And so in that sense, it's definitely been a positive. It's been negative in that, you know, I haven't been able to get up as much. I've only done stand up maybe like 15, 20 times this year, which is, you know, the 15, 20 times is normally like 2 weeks.
Right.
But now it's like, you know, 20 times in a year is crazy. It feels like almost restarting. But
jeez.
Beyond that, you know, this opportunity to make Zoo Idiots would have never come about had
into that. Go ahead.
Yeah, would have never come about had lockdown never happened.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's been great. You know, I know people have been sick, and it's I got sick, and
that's why I heard about that. Yeah.
I mean, I luckily, you know, knock on wood, I was only sick for like 2 or 3 days, and my wife was only sick for a week or so. But
good stuff. Yeah.
I know it's like tragic and stuff, but I've been trying to make the best of the situation and really just enhance skill sets that I wouldn't be able to enhance if I were going on stage all the time. You know, like writing and really just writing and reading and getting better at the things that are intangible when it comes to being better, being a better stand-up. Like I said, you know, going back to enhancing the performance skill sets.
Right. Work on the craft, definitely.
Yeah. And so, you know, had lockdown never happened, this opportunity to make Zoo Idiots would have never come about, and I would have never been adapt or never implemented the range of voice ability that I've gained from making Zoo Idiots, and you know, the other stuff that goes into making a cartoon. I would never been able to pick up those skills or enhance those skills had quarantine never happened. So
right.
I'm grateful for coronavirus.
There you go. Corona made us proud.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Taught us a lot of things. I mean, I started this podcast because of it too, just to survive.
Yeah.
So you've actually answered a lot of my questions. But I will say, what's it like to voice I mean, you alluded to this already, but the tiger that you voice has the best porn star name I've ever heard, Fang Diesel.
Fang Diesel.
Who's both psychopathic and egotistic at the same time. Although I've heard that they're pretty interchangeable. I love the Meryl Streep joke that you threw in near the end. So I was, and then like coupled it with a Mike Tyson reference as well.
Thank you.
Is it fun? I mean, this is just like me. Like, is it fun voicing a tiger? Like, is it?
I mean, it was. Like, I mean, look.
Yeah.
You know, backstory on Zoo Idiots, real quick.
Please,
you know,
yeah.
April of 2020. I get hit up by a friend I met 2 years ago while on the trip. And he's an engineer, and he hits me up and says, "Hey, you know, quarantine's happened." He read an article about dolphins appearing in the Venice Canal.
I heard about that. Yeah.
And that was because humans had been locked away so long that all the stuff we were doing to adversely impact the environment had sort of ceased or lessened, diminished.
Right.
And, you know, to the point where, you know, you could see the Himalaya mountains from India. And I remember seeing that thinking, God damn, yeah, humans are really trash if we're putting up so much pollution that
California
can't see mountains.
Yeah, California sky was clear. Like,
it
hadn't been in decades. something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, my friend Jeremy saw that article, and him and three of his friends had put together this thing called a learning group where they want to learn about new things and learn about new processes. And they also collectively thought, how can we positively impact climate change, after having seen these articles and how animals must be feeling in now that humans have quote unquote disappeared.
Yeah.
And so he hit me up and said, hey, do you know any comedy writers that would be interested in putting together a bunch of Twitter accounts and have animals talking to each other about, how the quarantine has affected them? And I said, no, that sounds that sounds like a low return, high involvement kind of thing. And I didn't think, I know I wouldn't want to do it.
Sure.
Let alone me sending it out to a bunch of other friends. Hey, you guys interested in this and that?
Sounds like a very coordinated attack. So it's like too much.
Yeah, and I was like, no, but it sparked an idea in my head. I was like, maybe we can do something animated. An animated idea would be interesting. So I hit up Mookie, and Mookie's like a comedy writing savant, who's like studied television and character development like incessantly, since he was like 5. And yeah, I mean, he's just like, he just knows so much about TV, and the development process and writing process. And so I hit him up, and we've worked together on a bunch of stuff before. So it wasn't like, hey, it's good to hear from you. No, it's just like, yo, let's do this thing. So cool. We thought of this idea about animals in a zoo trapped in quarantine, as an analog for humanity. And we pitched this idea to this team, and this team is Jeremy, who's an engineer, Jeff, who is a CEO level banker in Brazil, Ahmad, who runs a $2 billion hedge fund in London, and Andy, who's a venture capitalist in London. And so, a team of like very sophisticated, very smart guys who just had no idea what went into making a TV show or anything of that matter. So we pitched them this idea, and they were like, yes, let's do it. They gave us a budget. We went back and forth on all that. We developed these characters with their input, and we created, after a billion iterations, this pilot. It took, from April until when we put it out, like tons of work to do that.
Yeah.
And so the voice process, probably came, I want to say July, August, September. Like that was learning how to voice, understanding the character, finding it within me, learning how to act, what goes into acting, studying that shit. And that process was grueling, but I look back at it as very formative in that the stuff I'll never forget how to do. And now I can slip into the Fang voice whenever I want, after listening to Fang a little bit. But that was so much fun to do. Once it clicked, like the first week or so was brutal because I was like bad. I was terrible, to the point where I was like, I biked to Mookie's like all the time because he lives like 30 minutes from me. But I remember just bike rides back from Mookie's thinking, God damn, this shit I'm awful. I will never act. I can't voice shit. And then something clicked where it was just like, I got it. And then I was in the booth, and once you get to the level of you can embody the character fully, then you're ready to record. And that was so much fun. Like the Meryl Streep line I remember is kind of ad-libbing. And then we had, built this huge backstory for Fang about, his past as like a tiger that had been involved in every major Hollywood production, and he had fallen off a cliff for reasons yet to be revealed.
He's basically like the Forrest Gump of tigers. He's done everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But evil.
And, I mean, like the evil Forrest Gump. So,
and that's on the superficially, that's what the show is about. These animals trapped in quarantine. But really, like we want to talk about climate change, and we want to talk about capitalism for socialism, and there's a lot of subtext within the show that obviously it's not subtext as I'm telling you, but it is. If you watch that show, if you watch Zoo Idiots with that in mind, and you watch it thinking, oh shit, these guys are heavily influenced by Rick and Morty and The Simpsons and South Park, like that's what our barometer was. You know, like I think Zoo Idiots is probably better than 90% of the cartoons out there right now. It's just a fantastic piece of art. Granted, the pilot has its flaws, and
It's the
but no
pilot.
pilot.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's the pilot.
It's a
always
pilot. No flaw. No
right.
pilot is unflawed. But
Oh, completely.
what we've done, I think, is created something that it will stand the test of time. It's just a piece of art, and you know, I'll look back at it 5 years from now. Think, God damn, I did that in 6-7 months with 4 people. You know, the 4 people being myself, Mookie, Matt Weir, who's our producer, and Rob Lynch, who's our animator. Like, the 4 of us did that whole fucking thing. You know, and the guys, the Penguin partners, the 4 guys that I mentioned earlier, like they had a lot of input, and obviously they were the resources behind the whole thing. But when it came to production side of things, we were day in, day out, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks, just like for zero, like almost no money, at least for me, Matt, and Mookie. For like maybe $1 or $2 an hour. Probably Mookie made less because he did all the sound work and all the editing on an hourly basis. Like, he made nothing. But like, that took so much work and so much dedication that it's the only thing I want to talk about ever for the rest of, you know, the year and the next 6 months. It's just like how much work went into it and how proud I am of what we've done. And we've got, what is it, the 17th? We've got, you know, 6 or 7 more episodes to go, and they'll come out as we can put them out, because again, it's like 4 people, but it's a labor of love at this point. It's just like, what a thing, what we want to see it through, because it's what an incredible thing we've made.
Yeah, no doubt. It's really cool to hear your passion for it too.
Nah, man, I fucking love that shit.
Yeah. What kind of like cartoons did you like? You mentioned Rick and Morty. What kind of cartoons did you like growing up or now?
Simpsons was the shit that I watched. Like, that was really it. Like, I was never obsessed with like Adult Swim or anything of the sort. Like, obviously I probably watched Pokemon here and there, and like Dragon Ball Z and all that, but
there you go.
The Simpsons was
good stuff. The
show.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, tuning in Sundays and be like, God, and like, I'll watch it now. Like, God, I can't believe I missed those. It's the most joke dense show there is.
100%.
And South Park to a lesser extent, in terms of what I watched, and that's really it. If I think long and hard, I'm sure there's a few others, but you know, The Simpsons was the bar for me, and Rick and Morty obviously came out recently, so I've been watching a lot of Rick and Morty, but that was really it, you know. And I think if you watch Zoo Idiots, you'll get the vibe of this. People watched The Simpsons, and they watched South Park, and they watched Rick and Morty, and that's the barometer we were going for. And I hope we got anywhere near it, you know.
I definitely got the Rick and Morty vibe just from like the way it was drawn too.
Oh yeah. Rob is a world-class animator.
Yeah. Who voices the Penguin leader, by the way?
Which, the El Pengo or Priyanka?
Priyanka, yeah.
Priyanka is voiced by Phoebe Tyers, who I'm not sure if you ever watched Search Party, but she's in that. She's fantastic and crushes it.
She really does.
She's got such a interesting range of voice, and what she brings to the character, Mookie and I would have never imagined. She does such a good job. And then Janet the hippo is voiced by Karen Feehan, who's a very funny stand-up in her own right. The rhino and Monk, the orangutan, are both voiced by Mookie. I voiced the bee.
Right, I heard about that. Yeah,
I voiced the ass-eating bee. And then our good friend Matt Richards, who's a fantastic comic and actor, and also a host of HQ Trivia on that app. Matt Richards, he voices Kevin, the blue bird parrot.
Yes, that dude's
and
hilarious.
Matt Weir, the last voice in the show, Pengo, El Pengo, the old revolutionary who has his moment in episode 2, is voiced by Matt Weir, our producer.
Okay, good. I want to see more of him, because like he's a Che Guevara like kind of archetype.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, episode 2 is just all about Pengo, and it's fucking incredible. It's so funny.
I love it. That's pretty much all the questions I had for you. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned that you were like a. I'm just curious. You mentioned like you mentioned like Dragon Ball Z and a couple other shows back when you were a kid. Do you catch any? Do you play any video games or like anime and stuff like that?
No, I mean,
Comic
my
books?
time is so focused on just comedy in general. Like, I wish I had time to do all the fun shit that I want to do, but now all the I try to make all the fun shit that I want to do somehow involved in comedy. You know, like
Yeah.
if I'm working out, it's because it enhances the brain. If I'm reading, it's because it enhances, connections in the brain. And
Sure.
if I'm eating something, it's because it's good for me. So that means it'd be good for comedy. Like, that's all I'm thinking about right now. It's like, how do I get better at comedy? Everything I'm doing, I'm just trying to get better at comedy in one way or the other. And so, like, if I'm watching something, it's even with the intent of like applying what I've learned about television, seeing it in the show, and then being like, okay, this is how the show has taken this and applied it or twisted it, and how can I implement the same thing in my comedy, whether it be my stand-up or my script writing. And I haven't watched any stand-up in so long. I've watched like 5 or 10 minutes here and there, but beyond that, I haven't seen shit. I mean, I watched Dave's stuff that just came out, but beyond that, like,
right.
Nothing. I'll probably go watch Andrew's shit today, just to support a friend. But
For sure, yeah.
Beyond that, like, and like with Dragon Ball Z, it was like very cursory. It's just because it was on. I never got into it or anything of the sort.
Totally. Yeah.
But yeah.
So what you're trying to say is that you're legit as fuck about how you train.
I'm just trying. I can say with confidence that this year and last year, like, this year, last year, and the next year, like, I will be, laser focused on enhancing every skill set I can to get better at comedy. I definitely haven't been before that. I've definitely been focused, but not with the same sort of gumption that I have now. And that's probably a function of the fact that I'm getting older and that I want to accomplish a lot before I go. And that, Kobe died, and I was like, fuck, man, this motherfucker, he did everything.
Yeah.
And all he did was just try to get better, and I got to do the same.
Yeah, I admire that, man. That's awesome. That's dope.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, of course. It looks like it's pretty much all the time we got today. Please, could you like plug Zoo Idiots and tell us where we can watch it and everything?
Yeah, please. I mean, thank you for having me. Zoo Idiots is at zooidiots.com. It's spelled exactly how it sounds, zooidiots.com. It'll lead you directly to the pilot. Watch it, like it, comment on it. I think it's a fantastic piece of art, and I hope we can get to bring you more,
I agree. And if you ever come down to St. Louis, man, please let us know.
For sure, man. Thank you guys. Tell Lance I said thank you for having me. Thank you, Kunal, for having me.
No problem.
Let me know when this comes out.
Yeah, I will. I'll give you a heads up and everything.
Is it going to be on Spotify and all that?
It's going to be everywhere you get podcasts.
Okay, cool. Awesome,
and
man.
we're going to probably throw this on YouTube too. So
awesome, man. Thank you very much.
Cool. No problem. And have a great day, man.
All right, you too, brother. Thank you, man. Take care of yourself.
You too.
Hey fan peeps, thanks for joining, and as always, we appreciate any feedback. You can follow us on our Facebook page, They Need a Hobby, and also at TNAH Pod on Instagram and Twitter.
Hopefully one day we'll find a hobby and maybe even be one of the cool kids. Peace.